What's more important for you, freedom or success? That's a question that Bob Dylan was actively working through when he was writing Like a Rolling Stone, a song that changed pop music forever and basically made Bob Dylan in something more than a voice of a generation. It made him one of the greatest poets of the past century. Like a Rolling Stone is a very interesting track. For one thing, it's electric. And as somebody who grew up listening to one of his earliest collection of greatest hits, it really stuck out. Most of the songs on that CD were acoustic. This one was electric. But more than that, it didn't have a message, or at least an overt message. Yet it was a song full of resentment, and I could feel, even as a kid, that there was a lot going on in that track. When Bob Dylan wrote it in 1965, he was tired. Everybody was telling him how great he was, but there was a discontent going in his soul. He wanted to move towards poetry in the style of Rimbaud and T.S. Eliot, and he was actively being mentored by Allen Ginsberg for, I think, more than a couple of years at the time. They had a relationship that started in the early 60s when Bob Dylan first arrived in New York. But he already established himself as the leading voice of the folk revival, and he was seen as a social singer. He was a writer of protest anthems, and yes, he did provide something that was needed by the culture at the time, but he wanted something more for himself. And he was risking it all. That's something that you could see in the lyrics. The subject of the song, if you heard it, if not, I don't know what you're doing watching this video. You should stop and listen to Like a Rolling Stone. Trust me, it's great. The subject of that song is one Miss Lonely, and there are a lot of biographical readings, and different writers have tried to identify either in Miss Lonely in either Joan Baez or some other female in Bob Dylan's life, but that doesn't fly with me. I think that Miss Lonely is Bob Dylan himself. I interpret this song as Bob Dylan speaking to himself, because there were two changes going on in Bob Dylan's art at the time. For one thing, he was going electric, and that's something that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. But he wanted to move towards poetry in the style of Rimbaud and other great poets. And he was risking it all, and he was basically going towards becoming a complete unknown. At least that was a path that was possible to him at the time. Nobody knew how big this song was going to be. For one thing, Columbia Records almost didn't release the track as a single. It was 6 minutes long, and they thought it wouldn't get a lot of airtime. Then there was that electric aspect to it. Everybody wanted Bob Dylan to be an acoustic folk singer. Still, he pressed on. And later, in 1966, he said in a Playboy interview that Like a Rolling Stone, it was the song that changed him all. He was almost done with songwriting at the time, and he was thinking of going either towards fiction and writing a novel or a play. But in 1965, he was writing a lot, he was typing a lot at his typewriter, and he wrote 20 pages of what he would call as vomit. He would define that as vomit. Think about it. And from those 20 pages, he extracted like a rolling stone. And it's interesting because this automatic writing was something that he was probably taught by Ginsberg, which in turn is something that we can trace all the way back to the avant-garde artists of the early 20th century, like the Dadaists and the Surrealists. And you can see that lineage. The song is full of surreal imagery. For one thing, there's this Napoleon in rags character, and there's the diplomat on the chrome horse that carried on his shoulder a Siamese cat. Like with any symbol, we can do a lot of readings on them. And this far exceeds the scope of this little video. But all the images are pointing towards bourgeois mainstream respectability, which was something that Bob Dylan had. Yet, he wanted something more. He wanted to be an artist that was free. And this is something that we can read easily in the last lines of the song. When you've got nothing to lose. You're invisible now, you've got no secrets to conceal. And I think the secrets that Bob Dylan was trying to conceal, it was this longing for more artistic freedom. And my reading is supported by what Jimi Hendrix had to say when he covered this song. This was a song that Jimi Hendrix covered a lot during live shows. And he said that when he heard that song, he didn't realize that anybody else could feel so low. Because Bob Dylan was being resentful towards himself. He was at the same time criticizing himself and having a pep talk through this song. And yet, the song charted. It reached number 2, being beaten by a Beatles song, Help, I think, which, come on, I'm not discussing the Beatles right now, I'm discussing Bob Dylan. That should tell you a lot. And they charted for 12 weeks, and it was actually the song that inspired Bruce Springsteen, the boss himself. He said that when he heard Like a Rolling Stone, he realized that music could be also intellectual, and that Bob Dylan freed his mind in the same way that Elvis Presley freed his body. What a beautiful image. And what's interesting about Bruce Springsteen is that he also wanted to be a writer at first. I know exactly when he decided to go towards music, but in Bruce Springsteen's early work, you could hear a lot of that Bob Dylan influence. He has a song, one of his earliest written songs, I'm talking here about Bruce Springsteen, it's called If I Were a Priest. It was released a few years back, very late in his career, and you could hear that Bob Dylan influence, that surreal, preachy Bob Dylan influence. And I think that's why we are still talking about Bob Dylan today. I think that's the reason why Bob Dylan became a Nobel Prize laureate, because he didn't want success. He wanted freedom. And I think that's something that all of us artists, be us writers, visual artists, musicians, have to learn. Freedom is more important than success. I didn't stumble on this place by chance. I don't believe in coincidences. This is a place where true literature lives and intellectual discussion thrives. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and share this video. It really helps the channel. Thank you very much for your support, and I'll see you soon.